The total number of votes cast is 432, of which the Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 200 votes. The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212 votes. No person having received a majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a speaker has not been elected.
The United States government, and Congress in particular, is incredibly embarrassing. Today is another day that provides ample proof of that, as 20 House Republicans rejected Jim Jordan's bid for Speaker in the first round of voting earlier today. And it's unclear he'll even be able to clinch these votes anytime soon. They are expecting a second vote tomorrow. Now, among the 20 holdouts were Don Bacon, Kay Granger, Mike Lawler, and Ken Buck. We're talking about Republicans here. And Jordan did need 217 of the 221 GOP caucus members to vote for him, but obviously he was only able to secure 210. Now, Hakeem Jeffries got more votes than he did with 212. Obviously, Democrats voted for Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat, for Speaker. Now, Representative Elise Stefanik said that she nominated Jordan for Speaker on the House floor, arguing that he is a patriot, an American first warrior who wins the toughest of fights. But he hasn't won this fight, at least not yet. 6 Republicans voted instead for Kevin McCarthy, and another 7 voted for Steve Scalise, the #2 House Republican whose own bid for Speaker fell apart last week. 3 Republicans voted for Lee Zeldin, who retired from Congress in January, and Republican Representatives Tom Cole, Tom Emmer, Thomas Massey got 1 vote each. Now, McCarthy and Scalise did vote in favor of Jim Jordan, but Politico reports that the Republicans who bucked Jordan are largely in 3 categories: those in vulnerable districts, defense hawks with concerns about military spending, and appropriators wary of Jordan's history of voting against spending bills. But the biggest common theme among the detractors here is a firm distrust for the Freedom Caucus aligned wing of the GOP. This is the more far right wing of the Republican Party. So we've got some more details, including what Democrats had proposed, but it appears that had been rejected. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Looks like every Tom, Dick, and Harry got a vote. That's an old school saying. There's 3 times I got a vote. All right, we're moving on.
It's not that old school.
I think it's a little old school. All right, so what's now old school is Republicans not being able to find a leader because they just cannot agree. Look, I'm in a unique camp here where I kind of like the disagreement, but not because the Republicans are fighting, but because they're having real disagreements about how to govern.
Are they?
Well, I think that they partly are. So here, let's talk about the part where they are. So the people that voted against Jim Jordan, 20 of them, and I explained the 3 categories they were in. 2 of the categories have a lot of guys that I can't stand. Now, Jim Jordan is terrible on social issues. Well, he's terrible on every issue, okay? But that doesn't mean that the guys on the other side of him in the Republican Party are good guys. They're not. 2 of those categories were the appropriators. Well, okay, there could be some moderates in there that are fine people. Overall, though, they're the guys who are giving all the corporate pork to their donors. And then the guys who want to do more military spending, they're totally in the pocket of the defense contractors. So I got no love for them. The ones in the vulnerable districts have to pretend to be more moderate from time to time. Okay, that's fine. I'd rather have one of them win.
Let's discuss that briefly, because Ken Buck, one of these Republicans who is not in favor of Jim Jordan, made an appearance on CNN, and I thought what he had to say was fascinating, and it really does show the conundrum that the Republican Party is dealing with in an era where Donald Trump is still, whether they like it or not, considered the leader of their party. So for the Republicans running for re-election in purple districts, or actually more importantly, in states that Biden handily won, they're concerned that if they vote in favor of Jim Jordan, someone who aided and abetted the big lie about the 2020 presidential election, well, then they're gonna have a much tougher time getting re-elected. These are people in the districts who voted for Biden, who have no patience for the election-related lies coming from the Trump wing of the Republican Party. And so it's a political liability for them. Everything they do is a political calculation. They don't really care about right and wrong, what the morality is. They're making a calculation that supporting someone like Jim Jordan, who is a lapdog for Donald Trump, will not be politically advantageous for them.
Yeah, 100%. But at the end of the day, I want them to make that calculation, right? That's how you get to the right result, is you say, well, you might lose your seat, so you better vote the right way. And in this case, voting the right way is not to vote for Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is one of the most extreme members of the House of my lifetime, not just of now. He's an inveterate liar. All he ever does is lie. He lied about the 2020 election. He lied, by the way, about his personal situation. Elise Stefanik made everybody like go out loud, gasp out loud in Congress when she referred to his days on the wrestling mat, because of course there's that controversy where he covered up for someone who, the charges are that he covered up for someone who was sexually molesting the boys on the team. Is Ohio State, so they're college kids. And look, by the way, I mean that's covering for a groomer. Imagine if a Democrat ran for Speaker of the House with that background. The Republicans would have ripped his face off. The Democrats have barely said a word about that. But okay, so that's one of the many ways that Jim Jordan is incredibly extreme. And if you're worried that you're in a vulnerable district and your district might not like someone who's a radical right winger who hates our democracy, yeah, you should vote against them. Otherwise, you should lose your seat. Exactly how democracy works.
Now, while some might be making savvy political calculations, others within the Republican Party are not. In fact, some of them have made admissions that they probably should not have made, but it does give you a sense of why they vote the way they do in some cases. So Representative Kelly Armstrong of North Dakota said that he voted in favor of Jim Jordan for the following reasons. He's the best person to keep us out of a government shutdown, and the best person to keep conservative media off our backs as we face a shutdown. So look, it's not confirmed what he's referring to, but we can certainly speculate because some reports indicate that Fox News host Sean Hannity, who is a Trump lapdog for sure, has been basically reaching out to Republican lawmakers, urging them to support Trump ally Jim Jordan, okay? So the email cites the budget, Ukraine, and Israel and asked, please let us know when Representative Blank plans on opening the People's House so work can be done. So this was an email sent by a Hannity producer to apply pressure on Republican members of Congress to support Jim Jordan for the role. Hannity also personally contacted at least one member directly to urge them to vote for Jordan. Last night, Sean defended, I should say, his involvement and had some pretty strong words for Republicans who took issue with it. Let's take a look.
And why is it a shock to certain lawmakers and members of the media mob, all of you out there, that yours truly, a member of the press, is daring to ask elected representatives, the so-called public servants in this country, if and when they plan to wrap up this speaker battle and reopen the People's House amid growing chaos? But I do have to chuckle that a few of my questions, simple questions that I asked to some Republicans over the weekend about the importance of getting a speaker as soon as possible, showed we have a few sensitive little snowflakes in Congress. I offer no apologies for doing my job and seeking answers from those elected public servants.
Yeah, members of the media should not be using their platforms like to basically pressure these politicians to support your preferred, individual. Like, look,
I don't agree.
Yeah, you're right. We do engage in pressure ourselves, but look, I think a better way of framing it is Hannity's gonna do what he's gonna do. But I do find it fascinating that you have members of Congress, okay, people who have been elected into their positions, cowering and showing how fearful they are in regard to members of the media. You got elected to serve the best interests of the people in your district. Are you gonna do that or not? Or are you just gonna cave to pressure from Hannity?
Yeah, well, look, I get it on all fronts. First of all, Hannity does a talk show. He's conservative. He doesn't hide that he's a conservative. And so he's pushing for what he thinks is his agenda. I got no problems with that. And Anna's right, I do that. We wanted to pass $15 minimum wage. We asked you guys to put pressure on Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, and everyone else to try to put that in the bill and get it passed. So I don't begrudge that. And then for the politicians who are afraid of Sean Hannity and the rest of conservative media, because Hannity's just a figurehead. They're like the talk show hosts online, the radio hosts, et cetera. They do a lot more damage in your districts, in my opinion. And so, well, yeah, but they're the ones telling your voters which side you're on. So I get that media is a giant part of politics. So that's how this game is played. But look, guys, that's why I said in the beginning, I think that these policy differences are interesting and important, and I think it's positive that the Republicans air them out. So some of the Republicans say, I don't care about democracy. I like that Trump tried to do a coup. I tried to help him with his coup. I didn't mind the fake elector plot. Next time we'll get more fake electors and we'll end this goddamn government. And a couple of the Republicans are saying, no, I like democracy. I don't want to put someone in charge who lies about elections, tries to steal elections, and commits coups on behalf of Donald Trump. And if I'm caught supporting Donald Trump, forget Sean Hannity, Donald Trump, in my district, I'm gonna lose. So I'm not gonna do that, right? And that makes sense. They should have that fight, they should sort it out, and they should get to an answer. The Democratic Party doesn't allow any dissent. It's more authoritarian. And so our differences bubble and bubble and bubble, but they have no release valve at all. I don't know what's gonna happen with our differences, but progressives are not allowed to dissent, and then they bow their heads.
Look, I don't know how this is all gonna play out, and let me just preface what I'm about to say by acknowledging that Kevin McCarthy is a difficult figure to trust. But with that said, there was some possibility that if Democrats were willing to vote in favor of Kevin McCarthy maintaining his speakership role, maybe there could have been a situation in which concessions could be made on behalf of Democrats who do not have control of the House of Representatives right now. But I don't even think they entertain that. And I do have an issue with that because the outcome of all of this could be, we don't know yet, but it could be a House Speaker who's far more extreme than Kevin McCarthy, someone like Jim Jordan, for instance. But look, I could be wrong. McCarthy broke his promises to his own conference. So
and to Biden and to the Democrats.
True. So I don't begrudge Democrats for being, distrusting toward McCarthy, but there could have maybe been an opportunity there. And honestly, what my fear is that McCarthy will be replaced with someone like Jordan or possibly even more extreme.
Well, look, it's not like this thing's over. If Democrats had any kind of, initiative, Hakeem Jeffries could go back to McCarthy and say, hey brother, why don't we bring you back? Give me paid family leave. Let's just vote on it, okay? And then you get the speakership and we're done with this thing. And then that way it's unbreakable because you've got the Democrats and plenty of Republicans voting for you. So if you want to just get tarred and feathered and run out of town, that's currently what's happening to you. And you're never gonna get power back and your career is over right now. I could rescue your career and the majority of Republicans would actually vote with you. And all you gotta do is give me a vote on paid family leave. You don't even have to vote for it, right? So that way we'd be like, holy cow, look at Hakeem Jeffries, what a deal maker. And at least we got something that a huge percentage of the country agrees with, and at least we can fight for it, et cetera. But Democrats never take any initiative.
Well, I think my read of this is that the Democrats have made their own political calculation and they plan on running for re-election by pointing to how dysfunctional the Republican Party is with their infighting, which is why, conservative media hosts have their hair on fire over this.
And one last thing for me. Look, you have to always remember that almost all politicians are liars. So, and you will see it with your own eyes going forward. So I like to lay down markers for what's going to happen, okay? So either the Republicans are going to do well in the next election, and if that happens, all of these guys, including the 20 guys who dissented, et cetera, will become the biggest Trump MAGA supporters you've ever seen. They're gonna tell you that, Jim Jordan was right about everything. Matt Gaetz is their new leader. They don't care. They don't have any principles. They just care about power, fame, and money, okay? On the other hand, if the Republicans get shellacked in the next election. All of a sudden, you'll find out that all of these same guys were super moderates, because then they'll realize, oh my God, we had it. They could easily win this next election, and if they don't, they're going to realize it was because they were too extreme. At some point, that's going to click in their heads, especially if Trump loses the next election. At which point, they will all pretend to be moderates in order to keep their seats, because they don't want to get washed out. That's how this game is played. Politicians, generally speaking, don't actually have principles or ideas or anything they care about other than their own ego.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.